We're really excited today to talk about NFTs. We've got some people who are super excited about NFTs and the value that they offer. But I know that as I've looked at social media, I've looked at kind of in the news, there's a lot of confusion, questions, and there's concerns that NFTs are scams. So hopefully after today, you'll learn a lot about NFTs. We've got a great panel, as I mentioned. We've got Francesca Witzburg, Leyla Seka, Chris Young here. So what we're going to do first is go around and have each of them introduce themselves, and then we'll go over the agenda and dive right into it. So let's have Francesca go first, then we'll go to Leyla, then Chris for introductions. So Francesca, take it away.
Thanks, Alex. So hello, everyone. My name is Francesca Witzburg. I'm an intellectual property attorney that specializes with trademarks, copyrights, and contracts related to IP. And now I am an IP lawyer with the intersection of all things fashion, branding, entertainment, and metaverse, NFTs, and Web3. It's a super exciting time to be an intellectual property lawyer. My job just got really interesting, and I'm really excited to be here to talk all things NFTs today.
Hi, everyone. I'm Leyla Seka. I'm the COO of Ironclad, and we're all very happy you're here. I am here to talk to Francesca because I don't know anything about NFTs. They terrify me. So I'll just start off like that. All right, Mr. Young.
Hey, what's up, y'all? Chris Young here. I'm the general counsel at Ironclad, and like Leyla, I'm here to learn. I'm a skeptic for all the lawyer-minded, legal-minded folks. I'm a skeptic, but look, I think we're all going to be open-minded, right? So at the end of this, maybe we liquidate our 401ks and put them into NFTs. Who knows? Keep an open mind, y'all. I'm going to try to.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, everyone, for introducing yourselves. Let's go to the next slide so we can talk about today's agenda. And as any good lawyer would tell you, of course, this is an informational session. It's here to help you gather information. It's not legal advice. So always, do your own research. With that disclaimer out of the way, let's dive right into the agenda. So first, we're going to talk about, okay, what are NFTs? Some of you might already know, but maybe to others of you, this is new. So we're going to cover that first. Then we're going to talk about the risks and rewards of NFTs. They've been out for a while, and we know a few things about the risks and rewards, and we want to share those with you. And then third, we have NFTs do's and don'ts to give you a guideline of what you should try to do or try to avoid. And it'll be an ongoing discussion. We hope that you'll ask some questions, and as our speakers are going to be talking, as our panelists are talking, I'm going to be monitoring the chat. So feel free to drop your questions in there. Again, there's a few folks on Ironclad who are helping out who will be able to monitor the chat as well. So ask your questions there. So with that, let's go to the next slide and just get into it. So NFTs seem to be everywhere these days. And, we've seen some of the headlines. Some of you may have seen the headlines about the crazy sales prices. But a lot of people don't really know what it is. So Francesca, can you give us an overview of what an NFT is? What does it stand for? Who makes them? Who buys them? Like, what's the whole point of NFTs?
So an NFT is short for non-fungible token. But what is a non-fungible token? And the best definition that I can give that really explains their importance is that an NFT is proof of ownership of a digital asset that's verified by the blockchain. Okay, that may not be the definition you were thinking about, but here's why that's what it is. The technology behind an NFT is what is so revolutionary. What we're seeing right now, like in this picture, is only one example of an NFT technology. So yes, I'm able to point to that and say, that's my NFT, which it literally is. That's my NFT. And if you wanted to verify that, you could actually go and check right now to see if I'm lying or not. So why is that so important? And it's because we're talking about JPEGs right now, but in the future, we're going to be talking about ownership of real assets or any type of asset, commercial works, movies, film, rights to intellectual property. It's basically proof of ownership in our digital world. And why it's so important is that it's verified on an immutable ledger. So every time the asset is sold or transferred, there's an actual chain of title. Now think about that. That technology applied to mortgages, the real estate industry, basically any industry being able to verify assets, it's going to revolutionize. But what we're seeing right now is the first iteration of this technology in the form of digital art. So there is a really wild statistic that a huge percentage of art they actually think may be counterfeit. And it's because we rely on humans who are subjective to verify whether or not art is original. We get rid of that problem with the blockchain, with NFTs. As soon as an artist mints their work on the blockchain, there is now an immutable record of ownership transferring on and on and on and on and on. And another reason why the NFT is so important is because you can link it with a smart contract. So the transfer can happen automatically. And you can set up the smart contract so that it'll give royalties back to the original owner. So there's a lot of things I just said that we're going to discuss today in detail, but I really do want everyone to think about an NFT is not just a JPEG, okay? An NFT is proof of ownership of a digital asset that's verified by the blockchain, and that is what's revolutionary.
So that's really helpful overview, and I've been looking at some of the questions in the chat. We had a question about the benefits of the blockchain, and Francesca, I think you did cover this, but if you were to just give a 1 or 2 sentence summary of what the benefits of logging these assets on a blockchain are, like what would you say that is?
Yeah, I think it's the fact that it's decentralized. So right now, if you were to take your money in and out of a bank, we're relying on centralized organizations and their ledgers, right? But what happens if you have, and this happened with some of the banks, there you have corrupt people or you have systems that can be tampered with. The blockchain cannot be tampered with. It's a peer-to-peer system so that if you try to change it on one server, there's endless other servers that are going to compare it to. And if there's one change that's not right, it'll reject that. So that's why the blockchain technology itself is so immutable, that there's not one person controlling it that can change it. And that's why having things on the blockchain is really going to revolutionize every single thing that we think about in life. Any transactions, I really believe in the next 10 to 20 years, every single transaction in every industry will be a hash on the blockchain.
Yeah, absolutely. And I see there's a lot of use cases for this. I saw a couple, I think someone might have mentioned mortgages in the chat, but there's another question that it came up and it touches upon the legal implications of NFTs. I'm going to go to it right now. It's a question from Daniel, and if we could go to the next slide. The question is NFT ownership and copyright ownership of the underlying work the same? There's a few different ways to go about this, but maybe what we could start off with, Chris, is we have a lot of questions, I think, generally from folks about the IP, the intellectual property implications. That for digital files, you can copy them. It could be the same image, a screenshot of something that someone has ownership according to the blockchain. So how do we reconcile that? How is ownership enforced in this world?
I'll just that's a great question. I mean, I'm just wondering, these digital things are built on top of something that someone else owns, right? And so who really owns the NFT? Is it the author that created the original work? Is it the person who produced the NFT based on the original work? How does that all play out?
There is inherently a philosophical question going on here that is asking us all to evaluate, what does ownership really mean? So in our current world, we think I own something. I paid money and I bought this mug. And I own it because I exchanged $1. I have my proof of purchase and it's in my physical possession. when the internet was invented, that kind of, again, changed everything. People were freaking out in 1990, like, oh my gosh, is the internet a fad? What is happening? We're never going to use this. There's going to be so many security problems. It's very similar. What's happening now in today's discussion is very similar to what it was back when the internet was invented. And it posed the same question. How do we protect our assets, our names, our content that now can be distributed across the globe in perpetuity in milliseconds, okay? And IP lawyers and the rest of us have had to figure out how to protect it. And so intellectual property laws were created pre-internet, but we have applied them into our internet world, right? And so the question, it's continuing. I advise clients on a daily basis, how do I protect my content? I spoke to someone yesterday, her content went viral. She got so overwhelmed, she was not able to protect it and monetize it because it's a game of whack-a-mole. She didn't have the funds to hire legal counsel just to sit and take demand letters down all day. This is it's a philosophical question that we have to think about, is how can people protect their intellectual property when at a click of a button, it could be spread everywhere and very difficult to enforce. So the same question comes with NFTs, but NFTs offer a really cool solution. So the fact that you can mint something. So for those of you that don't know, minting is the process of uploading your digital file and putting it on the blockchain, and so that it is available for purchase, okay? So if I create something, I create a picture, like a meme, okay? I make a meme and I mint it. Now, if that goes viral, two things could happen. That value as an NFT, the value could explode. And this happened with one of the cat memes that you guys know with the rainbow. I forget the name of it now, but that meme went viral and the owner of that meme was able to profit because the value was so, went up. So really, NFTs allow for creators to take ownership of their content. So that's just an example. And then I will talk about IP ownership versus physical ownership.
So go ahead.
No, sorry, Chris, I will talk all day. You gotta interrupt me.
I was just trying to, so is like the reverse here true, like in the trademark context, the more your stuff is used and you're not enforcing it, the more you're kind of diluting the value of your mark. And the court's going to be like, hey, now you're complaining, but you didn't enforce it in the past. But it sounds like the opposite can be true here. The more people who use your NFT, the higher the value.
Yeah, the NFT technology is why it's so revolutionary is it's really giving power back to the creator. It's giving power back to the creator because you can mint it and make it available for an amount, whether it's cryptocurrency. Then your community can buy into it. And every time there's a sale, the owner gets a royalty without having to hire an expensive royalty company, without needing lawyers to really collect and the manual reality of it. But there's still an IP element that I believe IP is not going anywhere, meaning like trademark registrations, IP protection rather,
right,
and IP enforcement isn't going anywhere. I think the combination of utilizing the NFT technology and coupled with your IP protection is going to help content creators and all of the people who are putting their stuff out there.
Tell one last piece, because I'm just curious. It's like the actual real life enforcement mechanisms. Is there any reason to believe that there's any teeth these days, or is it kind of the wild, wild west out there? I just feel like, look, when we were preparing this presentation, we were going back and forth on whether we could use a picture, I think, of the Bored Ape from the Bored Apes yacht, whatever the hell it is, the yacht club or something like that. And we decided, it wasn't worth the risk, right? But if we were, what would they do about it? Nothing, right?
Well, I think it's still similar to what's happening right now in on the online world. So if you're to take someone's photo and use it on a presentation for profit or to put it in an advertisement. The law still applies. So copyright laws, trademark laws still absolutely apply. And I think your question goes to, well, who's going to enforce if these platforms are decentral, if there's not one governing entity, right? So, okay, in a theoretical world, everything would be decentral in Web3, which is using, blockchain technology. But what we're actually going to see, what I believe, is that that's not going to happen. I think we see with Facebook, Microsoft, they're all building their own metaverses. OpenSea is a centralized organization. Coinbase, publicly traded company. Like, it's just the next evolution of the internet, and people are going to figure out how to make money and how to run commercial entities. And then brands are going to choose, you don't have to mint your stuff everywhere. You can choose to mint and post your NFTs with a quote unquote trusted centralized source. So even though we're talking about everything being decentralized, I do think that we're going to end up seeing just the same thing that happened with Web 2. The Facebook's coming, but it's still going to give people more opportunities to build their own platforms. That's the purpose of Web 3. But I think ultimately a lot of stuff will still be centralized.
I would love to just continue this, but let's get into brand. I think.
Well, yeah. Hold on. I want to ask a question.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
the marketing
Get in
person.
there.
I'm the marketing. All right. So you brought up brand. This is how companies establish themselves. This is how companies sort of create culture, essence, feeling, everything that makes you want to buy and engage with a company starts at the brand and moves down. How does NFT play into the brand? Should I be making an NFT? Should I have an NFT of me? What is happening here?
I think every content creator and brand will eventually have their own NFTs. What that will look like is going to depend on what their business model is, but the tech is still so early that it's not, Leyla, we were talking about this, it's not as user friendly. It's not so easy for someone just to buy an NFT right now. And it's sketchy. You have to be really, really careful. But once this is so integrated into our lives, it's literally going to be to the point where, oh, you like this picture. It'll be like an Instagram feed where, oh, I like this. I'm going to buy it. Boom, click. Your wallet is sending crypto to them, and you get the NFT, and it's on the blockchain, and you have ownership. And then, so yeah, it'll eventually be like that. But from a branding perspective, NFTs are phenomenal. Because think of what we all do on the internet. We're community building. We are posting content to get eyes on our content. And NFTs, it's the same thing. It's token tribalism. They are social tokens. You can create a NFT project that has 10,000 pieces, and your 10,000 owners, you can give them ownership of the intellectual property. You can give them access to events, access to masterminds. There's a restaurant in New York that you can now only access by holding an NFT. I tried to
Wait, what does that mean? I'm not allowed to eat a hamburger there if I don't have an NFT?
You have to buy the NFT. So you can go on OpenSea and see who's selling, and you can then buy it. And then if you're done eating there, you're not happy, you just post it for sale and someone else will buy it. So this technology we're just scratching the surface with it. Digital art, everyone watching, that's not, an NFT is not just digital art. It's way beyond that. We're just seeing the first iteration of it. But
it's sort of overwhelming. Should I be making an NFT for Ironclad? I know I'm stealing some of Alex's thunder here, but so how does it work in software? Sorry, I'm not a lawyer, so you guys are gonna have to deal with a business person for a hot minute here. But so if I sell someone some Ironclad, do I give them access to my NFT? How?
So wait, can you repeat it? I just want to make sure I understand.
How does that happen? How do I what does software companies NFT mean to anybody?
You can give them access to the code or to your program. It could be will be in the form of NFT. Instead of doing, you send them a payment, it could be in the form of cryptocurrency, or if they buy an NFT, they get access to your programs.
So Chris wouldn't have to negotiate commercial contracts anymore for me, because I could just NFT them Ironclad and they could take it or whatever you do on the blockchain, and then I'd get money?
Great question. So that comes to the legal terms versus smart contract terms. So all the smart contract is really, it's like if then code. It's what happens. It's code, right? But there are also legal terms that will go along with that example. Like, right, you're just like you guys do your software terms. You have a contract and then someone pays you and then you give them the deliverables. And right now, the way that if you wanted to use like NFTs and smart contracts, as an IP lawyer, the best practice is really to do both. So you have the smart contract and you still have the actual legal contract, because it's not as feasible to put all the legal terms in the code. Like, right? Yeah.
Good. Chris looks a lot happier with that answer than he did. All right, Alex, I'm going to shut up for a minute.
No, not at all. And I think this raises a great transition to brand building, how NFTs are used to build brand. Francesca, I mean, what can you share about that in terms of how brands are leveraging NFTs?
I think it's cool because NFTs, in the form that we're seeing them, like the digital art projects, have become brands. Like the Bored Apes, like CryptoPunks, those are brands. Those they do partnerships. They're represented by some of the biggest talent agencies. Like, no joke, they've become brands. And then also brands can make NFT projects. So it's really a matter of just keeping an ear to the ground and learning. Like, I know that there's a lot of people in here who do represent bigger businesses and brands. And so that this is the first step, is just understanding the technology and thinking, what can we do with it? But right now it still is a lot of the digital art. And I just think learning and being creative, there really is no limit as to what you can do. Literally, the limit is your creativity. So it's like, with the internet. When the internet was born, we didn't see Facebook, we didn't see Instagram. It took the technology evolving to get to that point. So that's where we're at today. We're at the beginning of the internet stage for NFTs. That's the analogy. And so as it continues to go on, we're going to be seeing some really cool projects that are going to come out in the next few years from some of the brands.
Can I ask one question? Sorry,
ahead.
Alex. Sorry. So do you think companies that are like pushing NFT technology right now inside of their marketing and their brand are going to be ahead of the game in 3 years?
It's a great question. I literally I think about this all the time. Like, if I'm advising a brand, a global brand, on what to do with the technology, like, what do you do? Do you just sit back? Do you let your competitors, or I think listening and learning is important, because everyone has really smart people on their businesses, and they're going to figure it out what to do from the marketing perspective. But right now, the evolution that we're seeing is it's profile pic, PFP projects, which is the digital art. So if a brand wanted to, and they had the funds, they could create a profile pic type project where the owners get access to the NFTs, but then you give them something more, right? We saw some celebrities try to do projects that were just like, oh, it's my name and here are my NFTs, and they actually didn't do well. So just because you're a big brand doesn't mean that your NFTs are going to do that well. Did you guys lose me?
Yeah, a little bit of internet issues, but I think you'll come back here in a second. I just started laughing because I saw something in the chat that caught my eye and I didn't read it correctly. There's been a lot of chat around the restaurant issue in New York, and someone said most crypto you buy is KYC by Coinbase, but I read it as reading like, oh my God, KYC. KFC has NFTs. What's the world coming to? Anyway, we can carry on. Okay, back to that.
Did an unlimited coffee NFT. Like, I can't wait till that happens. And Coachella is giving unlimited access to Coachella with NFTs. So there's a lot that can be done. So you can do a profile picture, whatever.
Can you walk us through one of those examples? Because I'm the skeptic, and Leyla and I know zero about this stuff. And I think that there's a lot of people in the audience who just got confused. So how the heck do you use an NFT for Coachella? My wife would like to know.
Yes. Okay. I haven't actually tried to buy one, so I'll give like just a generic example. So basically, if you do own an NFT that gives you access to something like an event, then it'll basically be your access code. So whether it's like a barcode, that's the form of the NFT, but you basically get your entrance in the form of the NFT. And if you want to sell it, like think about that. You don't have to go through any other third party. You don't have to ship out the tickets. It's literally you just buy the NFT and you have access.
And can transfer it much easier than logging into Ticketmaster and accepting the transfer from the random person and forgetting your passcode. So you have to get it all done in the parking lot before the Warriors game, kind of like that.
That,
Right.
Chris, you just explained why this technology is going to revolutionize and disrupt a ton of businesses. It's good and it's bad for some people, but like anything, you know, disruption, it freaks people out, but it gives birth to the next evolution of businesses. And that's, you said it, it makes transactions frictionless. Leyla's like,
I'm just so excited, and now I'm getting excited by it. I tried to buy an NFT earlier this week, by the way, before we did this. I just thought it would be funny, and for the life of me, could not figure out how to do it at all. I was also at a dinner with a bunch of CEOs and COOs right before this, and I said, "So, how many of you have Bitcoin?" These are all like super rich people. I was like, "How many of you have Bitcoin?" And all of them were like, "What are you talking about?" And then I was like, "Don't you think we should be doing something with this? Like, remember when everyone said, just like you?" I said, "Remember when everyone said the internet was kind of like whatever, jokey?" And all of them were like, "This is snake oil, Leyla. Don't be crazy." And then I had like 6 like "don't be a fool" articles in my text message the next morning. So it's very confusing because I think those people are really smart. But I actually think you're smarter here, Francesca. I think you are.
Well, it's really important to keep an ear to the ground. I mean, there's always new markets developing. There's always new technologies, and you have to figure out how to integrate them. Things are moving so fast. Since COVID, since everything being online, for example, if businesses aren't using social media or having an online presence, I mean, that's a no-brainer. It's death to your business. And we're not there yet with Web3. It doesn't mean like you have to have an NFT project, but we need to keep an eye out and ears open. Like, what is next? Where do we need to be positioned to be early rather than be late and be disrupted and lose business?
Is a question here though, like, is an NFT a security? And if the security regulations that come down because it's deemed a security, isn't it much harder to get into Coachella with an NFT and then you're back trying to log into Ticketmaster?
Yeah, so NFTs are now being scrutinized by the SEC. And the SEC actually just issued, they've been issuing letters to some companies asking for more information to some projects, but now they have actually, according to some sources I read, actually issued subpoenas. So there's a test, it's called the Howey test, that's going to have to analyze like some factors, but really, you know, this is not legal advice, it's not financial advice. What they're really looking for is projects that are holding themselves out as a security. So there's something called fractional NFTs, where if you can like break the NFT up and people can have part ownership, those most likely are going to be held to that higher scrutiny. But for the most part, I think like most of the NFT projects will not fall under that because they don't meet that standard. Without getting too complicated, most of them aren't.
Leyla, I think you might be muted. It looks like you're.
Oh, I stay muted because I'm so disruptive on these things that if I actually let you hear what I'm saying all the time, no one else will get a word in edgewise because I talk. I'm like, this is my COVID problem. I talk to myself constantly through meetings now. No, I feel ridiculously thrilled by it. Like, where do I get a wallet? How do I buy one? This is a ridiculous question and not what we should be talking about. But I do kind of, how does one begin?
I would start on YouTube. Like literally, there's fantastic overviews of how to begin and how to be safe. because we should talk about that. I know we talked like how cool this technology is, but there is a lot of there's a lot of importance behind the headlines that we're reading with all of the scams. There's serious security problems that can't be overlooked. So you definitely should start on YouTube, watch, but be careful with how you even create your MetaMask, what you're linking it to. There's a lot to know. So the answer is
what does that mean? I don't even know what you're talking about. What's a what'd you say?
Okay, I'll give you like really high level, but then everyone needs to go on YouTube and watch videos. So you first have to buy cryptocurrency. And if you want to buy NFTs on the most popular marketplace right now, which is OpenSea, they use Ethereum. So you'd have to buy Ethereum. You can use Coinbase. There's other places where you can buy it as well. And then you need a MetaMask wallet or some other wallet. There's a couple, but I'll just use MetaMask as an example because it's one of the most popular ones that you can then put your Ethereum in the MetaMask, link it to your OpenSea, and then that'll give you access to buy NFTs.
And that might be a good segue to let's talk about the risks and rewards, and to talk about the risks and rewards in NFTs. Let's go to Vera, the do's and don'ts actually, and we've got a few pro tips here. And I see Chris, you're about to say something. Maybe before we jump in, do you want to share what you were going to say?
I don't want to derail too much, but I can't. I'm a recovering trial lawyer, litigator, and U.S. Department of Justice guy. So when I see NFTs, I see this commodity or whatever it is that people can put money in and get a bunch of money out of. So immediately I think about money laundering. Like you got a car wash, it's doing okay, and you're putting all your car wash money into Bored Ape NFTs or something, and then you're getting a return. How on earth can that be kept in check? Because that seems like a nice hustle right there.
Yeah, you know what's interesting though is that the blockchain is public. So we always talk about decentralized and being anonymous, but really the blockchain is a public immutable ledger. So if you're doing shady stuff, the government has really smart people. I tell my husband, I'm like, there's got to be some group that they have that's totally investigating this stuff, and they're on the ball. So I think they'll figure out ways to, just as you could, like you said, you can launder money in the physical world and on the internet now. It's going to be the same, but on a public ledger.
Maybe it's not the best because the government's often making decisions about what resources to deploy to which cases, right? And if it sounds like an investigation is a little bit easier here since there is that single source of truth, that blockchain record. Is that fair?
If you do it really well, you can just move like anything, right? You can move things around. What's scarier is, you can have shell company on shell company on shell company and move all your money around, but that takes time. You have to file, and it could be over months or years versus it's instantaneous with NFTs and crypto. And that's why the scams are so bad. They're the worst ever because these scammers are incredibly smart. They know the technology and they're changing it from wallet to wallet to wallet to wallet within minutes, seconds even. And that's what makes it, difficult.
Thank you. On to the do's and don'ts.
You're on mute, Alex.
2 years into the pandemic, I haven't figured out how to unmute myself. But I'm excited about talking about the first pro tip because I think it's tied to how I'm thinking about NFTs. And, I see here, it says, what it says here. And I think a lot of the questions that we've been talking about have to do with the financial return of an NFT, but there's so many other purposes, right? Brand building, we've talked about community building. I've always wanted to create these silly cartoons or watercolors just as inside jokes among my audience on social media. That's how I think about NFTs. So I think everyone seems to have a different purpose. So Francesca, how would you think about this pro tip, about thinking about why you want to get into NFTs?
Alex, you're gonna, your TikToks?
Yeah.
They're gonna be NFTs, Alex. And people, when they go viral, you're gonna make bank.
We will not talk about that now. We'll stop this just because we don't want Alex to be retiring from Ironclad anytime soon. So if you have any ideas on this webinar, we can cut this short.
We're gonna be coming to your place in Miami in a couple years. No, but like seriously, I think pro tip number one is just to learn the technology and really think about how it's going to be integrated into your business and brand. Because I'm joking, but I'm not when I say that that's how content creators are going to make money. Because right now people are making money because they're you're putting all your content out there for free, and either you make money through ads or you make money because you're marketing to some end product that you want them to buy, or you're just trying to build your brand and there's something at the end of it. But there will literally be a way for content creators to own their content and sell it easily, efficiently, without having to do much, just by putting it up as an NFT.
Alex, you're gonna need an agent for this. So let's just talk after the webinars.
That's such a good point, Francesca. And I, as someone who's very interested in this, I'm also trying to do my research. Let's go to the second pro tip. Francesca, I mean, you mentioned YouTube's. Where else can you learn more about NFTs?
I think understanding all the security risk is really important. I got lucky. My husband and I, we do this together. We're constantly nerding out on it. But he showed me. He literally opened my account. We did it step by step, and he told me, don't save your codes on the computer. Write them down. Put them in a safe. There's definitely things that you can do, but it's really important to do your research to stay safe, because as you saw with the most recent lawsuit against OpenSea, LooksRare, and the owners of, there's one other project that are getting sued for negligence. And this person, the people who are suing, they lost hundreds of thousands, if not more, in their NFTs because of scams. And so it doesn't matter how sophisticated you are, you really have to know and be careful, because you could buy all these NFTs and then all of a sudden, at the click of a button, they could be gone. Yeah.
And I think that's also tied to how crypto and wallets work. I think that's something that I'm trying to learn more about. Let's go to the third pro tip, because I think that touches upon that.
This is a fun one. Okay, so learn about it. I mean, Goldman Sachs accepts cryptocurrency. For anyone that thinks crypto is just a fad and going anywhere, I hope that the past 40 minutes have shown that it's not. That this technology is like the internet, and it's just the beginning, and it's totally going to transform our lives. And there's a lot that is yet to be unseen, but I do believe that the blockchain, cryptocurrency, NFTs, it's all going to be things that will be embedded in our everyday lives. It's just still really early.
And I think that this is tied to the next pro tip. And I'll say, when crypto first got big, or when I first heard about Bitcoin 8 years ago from a friend, I was like, this seems like a scam. This seems dumb. And I know it was 2013, and
we would have been in Miami with you.
I know, and I watched it evolve over time and become more accepted. And so I've kind of since learned that maybe I should keep an open mind. There are certainly risks and things we don't fully understand, but that's why I love the fourth pro tip. And maybe if we could flip to the next slide to see pro tip number 4, Francesca, could you touch upon how to think about these changes as somebody who's interested in NFTs but might not have all the information?
Yeah, I think everyone, hopefully at this point, understands the importance of social media, the importance of building a digital online brand. Doesn't matter if you are a professional, if you are a global Fortune 500 company. I think that argument is now closed on the importance of being online and building an online presence. So now we need to look to the next evolution of branding, the next evolution of community building. And we're really at the forefront. So it's not necessarily that everyone watching here is getting excited, has to jump right in. I think now's the time to learn. There's a bunch of great conferences that are being hosted across the world, really. And NFT NYC is one. I'm speaking at that. And I just encourage everyone to just learn, keep your ear to the ground. It's like that saying that if you took all the money from everyone and distributed across the world, that the same people will kind of collect it. I think it's the same. If you are really keeping your ear to the ground, and if you want to learn something and build a strong brand and business, you're going to figure out how to harness this technology and do it. And the people who unfortunately are going to write this off and not take the time to learn will not be on the winning end. And I also want to take it one step further, that the companies, because I know we do have some executives and high level people listening. You can't outsource this. You can try, but if you really are someone in a position of power to guide the brand and guide the company, I do recommend even learning about it and brainstorming on how you can really disrupt yourself and move forward and innovate in your field, because it will be done by competitors using this technology.
Well said. Let's, we do have a lot of questions we need to cover. I'm very excited about going through it. But before we go to Q&A, I do want to share a couple of quick announcements, and one of them will be related to learning more about crypto and everything that's happening with NFTs. So first, we're hosting our quarterly State of Digital Contracting event on March 17th. Our very own Chris Young will be spotlighted. He'll be walking through the redwoods, and I won't give you too many details, but you can go on social and see a bit more about that. And then second, if you're looking, and I think I saw a comment here about somebody saying law students who want to learn more about this, or people who want to learn more about maybe crypto as well. If you're interested in connecting with the crypto and fintech community, Ironclad is hosting a leadership roundtable with Coinbase. They're doing a lot of really cool things in this space. I've heard that they're trying to set up an NFT platform. And so we've got Molly Abraham, one of the assistant general counsels, joining us for a leadership roundtable on April 7th. And she'll be talking about how Coinbase is setting up for scale. So those are a few events. I think there's a lot of digital events in addition to the conferences that Francesca mentioned, lots of learning opportunities. So we're very excited about that. And obviously Ironclad is watching this space very, very carefully. So with that, I do want to dive into the questions, and I've taken the notes on a couple of them. There's a lot of questions. So I've kind of grouped them together, and I'll talk about the first one. And Francesca and Leyla and Chris, if you can all feel free to answer as well. How do we think about NFTs and middlemen? And I think when I say middlemen, there's a lot of different types. One type is like a broker, for example, or somebody operating between two businesses. With NFTs, a lot of activities are more direct. And then, more broadly, like, how does this impact lawyers? Because I think there's probably quite a few lawyers listening in here. And so maybe we'll start with Francesca on your thoughts on how it's going to impact.
Just how it's going to impact lawyers, I think. Go for it, Francesca. Or is it only me and Chris on the call? Okay, well, Chris and I will tell you
for the crowd, Leyla. I don't know. Like, how is it going to impact lawyers?
I want it.
Okay, there you go. We're back. Thank goodness.
But as a business user, Chris, and you are my GC, I want them.
All right, we're going to look into this, and I feel like I know a lawyer who knows a lot about NFTs with whom I can talk about this, Francesca. Anyway, let's get in there. Well, Leyla, I think it's just going to be me and you for a while.
Okay, let's talk about this for a second. So it's scary. It's scary, but I think it's actually something that it feels like to me, just like the internet. Amazon was successful because they got there fast and sort of first in lots of ways. Like, it seems to me like this could be something like that and something we could use, but I don't, and certainly our software, this is, we build smart contracts, it builds all kinds of contracts. Like, how do you think about that?
Yeah, it is fascinating from a product standpoint, from a branding standpoint. We're going to have a lot to talk about after this, Leyla, for sure. Francesca, just generally, like, what does this mean for lawyers? I mean, you have a practice that you have begun that is growing, that is successful, and it really relates to this sort of niche area that we're just learning about. How does this affect other lawyers, both with respect to business, but also the practice of law?
I view it as an exciting time because for me, it's a combination of our ownership, protecting our clients, figuring out how to monetize intellectual property. It's a really, really exciting time. And I kind of like went head first, and I'm obsessed with learning as much as I can to advocate and help clients. But so if you are a lawyer, whether you're an IP lawyer, a non-IP lawyer, I think that this is really important because the technology is going to be utilized in every single industry. So like someone said, the mortgage example, there's an opportunity for lawyers to really learn. And also with smart contracts, I think that people are going to migrate eventually their agreements to the blockchain. And you still need lawyers for all of that. You still need lawyers to negotiate the terms, what law is going to govern, what happens in the event of a breach, how to terminate. These are all terms and things that you still are going to need lawyers on. So don't think your job's going anywhere. It just may look a little bit different. So, and I'm not saying that you have to code, but it is important to know how this technology is going to impact your profession and that of your clients, the business of your clients.
Question about case law and precedent. Is there much? How is it evolving? Typically, the judiciary, the government out in Washington, D.C. and beyond, state governments are a little bit behind, right? We see with Silicon Valley a wave of technology and then government and regulations catching up. How are things looking in the courts these days and in the legislatures?
So great question. So, let's look at the last decade, like not the post-COVID, pre-COVID. So there were all the initial coin offerings, the ICOs, where people were having their own currency, and the government cracked down on those because they realized that a lot of them were scams. So that was really like the first time. And that's also a reason why people thought like cryptocurrency is really sketchy. So it's not that the technology is a scam. It's just the technology breeds scammers and greedy people, and you have to be really careful. And so now what we're seeing, we are starting to see more, the SEC starting to probe, like I said. There was a couple of big IP cases that have come out, which I hope go all the way so that we can determine some of the law. There's the Meta Birkin case, where a NFT project called Meta Birkin was selling Meta Birkin bags in the form of digital art. So the artist is arguing that it's art and it's a comment on expensive handbags, and that it's expression and protected. But Hermes is arguing you are using our name in your title, which is not just a title, it's a trademark, and you're ripping us off. If we wanted to do our own virtual goods, we would have done it, or we still may do it, and you're taking, you're hurting our goodwill. This is a very fascinating case for anyone interested. That's totally one to watch for trademark landscape on whether or not these names rise to the level as trademarks and what's infringing and what's not. And then also there was the Miramax versus Tarantino case, where this is more of a contract dispute, but Tarantino did his own NFT project where he took unedited scenes from his screenplay and was going to sell them as NFTs. And Miramax sued him saying, no, this is in breach of the contract. So Miramax is saying, you signed away those rights to us however many years ago when before the movie came out. He's saying that he retained them in a reservation of rights clause. And I've read them. It's a little gray, but we all know when there's a gray area of the law, people are going to duke it out. But the point of that is, like, in contracts, I'm literally writing in my contracts now, like NFTs, metaverse, Web3, like I'm trying to capture that and anticipate if clients are going to include those things in or not. It's an important thing to think about. So sorry, I got on a tangent, but it's
no
happening.
worries. That was awesome. And Alex is back. I'd be remiss not to highlight the only case that I kind of paid attention to was where Dame Dash, who used to be the CEO of what was it, Rockefeller, right, wanted to sell an NFT of the album,
That's right.
Reasonable Doubt album cover, and Jay-Z stepped in and said, no. And I think that's still pending in court, but I found that to be an interesting case. It all's about the underlying artist and then someone else who makes the NFT based on that art and how that all plays out. It's been kind of fascinating to see.
Yeah.
Alex, let's jump back in with some questions.
Yeah, sorry for dropping off, everyone. And this is such a great conversation. There's a few questions here that I was hoping, Francesca, you could touch on relating to ownership and NFTs and IP rights. I know that we may have touched upon it earlier, but people would love to hear more clarification around that. Can you share who gets the right? Can it be revoked, or how can it be transferred? Everything around ownership around NFTs.
Yes. Okay. I know I think I kind of glazed over this, so let's break it down. So if you own an NFT without any other contractual language, all you are owning is ownership of the digital file, which is really just a hash on the blockchain. That's all you're getting. You're getting verification that you own something, right? So think about it in terms of physical art. If you go and you buy a Picasso, okay, you own the Picasso, you can hang it on your wall, you have physical ownership of it, right? And you could tell people, I own a Picasso, I own a Picasso. You can take a picture of yourself behind your Picasso, put it on your Instagram. You can have that cred. But what can't you do? You don't own the intellectual property in the Picasso. You don't have the right to do partnerships, taking the artwork and putting it on t-shirts and selling it. Like, that is a fundamental thing that we all understand in the physical world. But then when it relates, when it relates to NFTs, everyone asks, but what do you own if you don't own the copyright? It's the same thing. If you own fine art, you don't own the copyright in the art. But here's where NFTs are even so much cooler than physical art. So let's say if you do own an NFT of a Picasso, okay? If I take a picture of my physical Picasso behind me and post it on Instagram, people may still not believe me. How do you know that the Picasso I'm saying is real and the back is real? You don't. You have to trust me. Versus if I say I own the Picasso NFT, all you all need to do is go and check the blockchain and see if I'm the owner, and you can verify it in 2 seconds. That is the power of digital art and using NFTs for digital art. It's still a mental leap that everyone has to make, but once we get past the physical versus digital block and think about ownership in the context of our digital world, then it makes sense on why people want to own digital art and why having it on the blockchain is so important.
That's a great answer. And I think, as NFTs evolve, we're all going to get a little bit more comfortable with this. I think it is a different, it feels different, when you compare it to, say, the art world. And I think there was an analogy to Beanie Babies, but, how would you advise for those of us who are trying to get, to learn more? I know we touched upon other ways to learn. What are some things that you're doing right now to help you get up to speed on NFTs, and for all of us to get up to speed on NFTs?
I dove in the thing is it's a market, right? So there's an NFT market, and the NFT market right now is not doing well. It is a bear market. All of the scams, even people in the NFT community, are getting upset with the projects because there's been so much hype about all these NFTs, the apes coming out and crypto punks, and people wanted in. And then there's other projects that became really hyped and cool, but then also there's projects that became hyped and were complete scams. And as more and more people got involved, people got greedy. And instead of minting at a low price, you can mint and buy an NFT if you bought it on the first sale really cheap. And now they're minting for tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, some of these projects. And with that, it's okay, these project teams just want to make a quick flip and then they disappear. or they do what's called like a soft rug pull. Like a rug pull is a term in the community where it's like a project's really hyped and then they don't do anything with it, and you just invested all your money in a project that's complete crap. But basically a lot of scams are happening and people are looking at it like, okay, well, what's the value? And I really think that, and now is a great time, whether you want to learn about NFTs and buy or create a project, to just listen, learn, and think about long-term strategy on what type of project you can create to give utility to your community. I don't know if I cut out.
I think Francesca said utility to your community, and I see Leyla and Chris nodding. As we wait for her to reconnect, I know we only have about 4 minutes left. I wanted to give Leyla first, then Chris, and then Francesca, a couple of words to kind of close out, your thoughts, any advice or a message for the audience. So we'll start with Leyla.
Look, I learned a lot. I mean, as I told you, I didn't come here any kind of expert or anything. I didn't know anything. I'm super excited about this. And if there are a lot of lawyers on this call, then I'm your business person counterpart. And I run marketing and sales and a whole bunch of other stuff. So like, I want to do stuff with this. I'm curious. It seems to me like a massive opportunity to do a brand jump, but I don't want to get us in any trouble. So like, that's where I am. And personally, I want to play with it, of course, but I always think about Ironclad first. So I'm super interested.
I'm fascinated. My brother-in-law tried to get me to buy an NFT many months ago, and I laughed. He said, you can buy these basketball cards where they're moving, and that's your card. And I was like, what the hell are you talking about? You're ridiculous. But then it reminded me, Alex, of 2014 when someone took me out to a Mexican restaurant and said, you got to invest in Bitcoin. And I laughed my way out of the restaurant as well. So look, at the end of the day, this was absolutely fascinating. I look forward to looking more. From a business standpoint, Leyla and I have a lot to talk about over here at Ironclad, but I'll leave with my words of my father, but with an addition from me. My father always used to say, all that shines ain't gold, right? All that shines ain't gold. And I would add, but sometimes it is. So I'm looking forward to looking into this one. Thank you for everyone for joining us, and for Francesca, you schooling us on this incredibly exciting area.
Thank you. Thanks, Chris. And then what I want to end with is piggybacks off of that, is that yes, there's definitely, if you look at the landscape right now of NFT projects, some of those are gold, but about 98% of them aren't. So there was a Beanie Baby analogy where, some of these projects are overhyped, aren't going to give you a ton of value. But think about it. If you were to invest like 30 years ago in buying comic books, it's not that every single comic book you would have bought would have been a Spider-Man or like a really popular one, but you would have bought it like a couple or a bunch that may have been not worth anything. So it's the same thing with these digital art projects. But I want everyone to focus more on the technology and how you can integrate NFTs into your business for branding, for marketing, to give back to your community as a content creator, as an IP owner. I hope this presentation showed you that there's so much with the technology and we're just scratching the surface. So I hope that this inspires people to think and be creative and create the next generation of NFTs.
Well, thank you so much, Francesca, and thank you, Leyla and Chris, for being on this great panel. I learned a lot, and I think a lot of us did as well. There's a lot of folks who want to hang out and maybe connect with each other in the chat. Feel free to, but we're going to wrap up here. And obviously, if there's some questions about NFTs and Ironclad, I'd say follow us on Twitter. If anything happens, you want to be there. So I'm going to drop the link right now.
Look, sorry, I'm going to do a Kanye thing. Look,
yeah,
I have 88 followers on Twitter. I'm struggling. So just do me a solid, y'all. I think, what am I, Chris J. Young on Twitter? I got 88 followers, and y'all already said, what did you say, Francesca? Oh, if you're not convinced that branding is important, like, okay.
Oh, yeah, we got to get those numbers up.
Help me out, y'all. It's good to see everyone.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Really appreciate it. Take care, and we'll see you next time.